What is up, everybody? Grant Wise here. Welcome to the Marketing Genius Podcast. I am really excited to be joined by our guest, the one and only Mrs. Katie Lance today, who has agreed to stop by and just add as much value as we can cram into 20 or 30 minutes here. So we are excited about having her as a guest. She has been doing some fantastic work the last several years in the industry, and I'm sure you guys may know her by name, but if not, you're about to get to know her a little bit better. So Katie, thanks for stopping by today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. I love it. So give us a story. Who is Katie Lance? How did you get to where you are today?
Well, I'll give you the short version. So I've always been kind of a marketing nerd. I've loved marketing and branding. And I guess about a decade or so ago, I started working for Inman News, which probably a lot of people are familiar with. I was their social media director and chief strategist. And then about 2012, I got the entrepreneurial bug and decided to go out on my own and started my social media consulting company. So I work side by side with my husband. He quit his corporate job a couple years ago, and we really work with the real estate industry, helping them get smarter about social media. That's really our passion. We work with brokerages and agents all over the world, really, again, consulting and helping them get smarter about social media. I speak at a lot of events, which is also a lot of fun. And we're just really, really passionate about helping the industry take what they're doing to the next level, especially when it comes to social media. So I'm a mom. We have two boys who are in the room, in the other room, since we're on summer break right now. So hopefully they won't bust in on this interview. But we're just passionate and fired up and excited to be here.
Yeah, that's awesome. If they do, that's totally fine. It'll make me feel better about my 2-year-old, like I said, who may decide to Hulk out literally at any moment. So
yes.
If you guys are listening to the podcast and you hear this strange yell in the background, it's my son that's having a blast, living life. So you do speak everywhere. I follow you on social media. You're all over the place. I got to share, not necessarily share the stage with you, but we spoke at the same event, Realty One Summit in Las Vegas. I walked in to see you speak. The room was packed. Couldn't even find a seat. I had to walk back out of the room. And speaking of my son, he has decided to pop in and join us. So everybody, if you're listening, this is Maverick. This is one of the great things. Maybe this would be a great segue into building a brand. Maverick, say hey.
Hey, buddy.
Is building a brand is doing it authentically, and sometimes building an authentic brand from an agent standpoint is this type of stuff. Where your kids walk in on interviews and so on and so forth. So what would you say are some things that agents should look for, when it comes to being authentic? A lot of agents, I think, are afraid to do that, especially do it socially. How do you feel like building a more authentic brand would help somebody grow a little faster?
Yeah, I mean, authenticity is such a big buzzword. And by the way, Maverick's adorable. For those of you listening, I'll just tell you he's adorable. But building an authentic brand, I think, is super important, and what that means to me is just truly being yourself and being comfortable in your own skin. I think a lot of agents and brokers, they want to be very professional. They don't want to offend anyone. And I'm not certainly suggesting that anyone go out and start offending anyone. But at the same time, we don't want to be vanilla. We don't want to be boring. We want to work with people that are passionate, that have an opinion. And what we have found are that agents and brokers who really lean into who they are and who they're not when it comes to their posts on social media, the videos they create, what happens is you're going to attract a lot of people who say, I like that guy. I like that gal. I want to work with them. And there's going to be some people who don't like what you have to say, and that's okay. Right. And it's just the difference, is attracting clients versus chasing leads. So that would be one of my first big tips is just truly, think about who you want to work with. Why do you love what you do? And lean into who you are and who you're not.
Yeah. As much as we're marketing, we're always unmarketing. It's people I think are always so afraid that they're going to lose clients. But when they get into those nightmarish type transactions that we know agents can get into, typically it's not a transactional problem, it's a relational problem. Yep. And you likely probably didn't even have any business doing business at all with that person. And I've absolutely found the more authentic I am, the more I repel the people that I don't have to do business with. And what I love so much about that is how much time I get to solely focus on the people that I actually want to do business with. My marketing repels the people that will never be a good fit. Yeah. And that's really powerful. What are some things that you try to advise people on who are thinking like, man, I don't have enough time to do all the social media stuff. I got to run a business. How am I supposed to cram all of this stuff into my already 24-hour days? What type of advice do you give people in those situations?
Well, we hear that a lot. I would say time is our most well, first of all, it's our most precious asset, as you know, as a parent. But it's also the biggest challenge that we hear from agents and brokers. When we say, what's your biggest challenge with social media? It generally has something to do with time. Not enough time, or can't find the time, or also, feeling a little overwhelmed because of the amount of time that they feel it might take. I often will try to turn that around and say, it may not be that you don't have the time. It may be that you just don't have a system yet. And when you think about any area of your business that you're really successful in, maybe it's negotiation, maybe it's the contract portion of it, maybe it's cold calling, whatever there's an area that you're really successful at when it comes to real estate, I would imagine there's probably some system in place, even if you're just a solo agent and it's just you. So the first step is really thinking about, what type of system can you put together? And you can start small. You truly can start with 10 or 15 minutes a day. Start by popping on Facebook or Instagram. Start by engaging with just a few people each and every day, and you can slowly grow from there. One of the big tips I give people who are just starting out, or even if they've been on social media a while, is this idea of Focus 5. And Focus 5 is, who are the 5 people you can connect with every day on social media? Just 5 people. And that doesn't mean running on and don't be a drive-by liker, as I often say, but who can you connect with? Maybe say congratulations if you see an awesome photo, or you wish them a happy birthday, or you take the online offline. You see something really cool happen, and you could, instead of post to their Facebook page, actually call them, right? But just start small. Start by putting together a system. Something like Focus 5 is a great way to kind of jumpstart your social media or dip your toe into that water.
Yeah, I love that. I always tell people systems don't fail, people do. And if you can get systems working for you in a big way, it's huge. I think, so many realtors, they come into the industry and they're not necessarily trained on how to build a business. They just want to be realtors, and they get in and they start doing all the realtor stuff, which is, that's their job, right? They've got all the contract to close work to do. They've got all the transaction coordination. They've got all of that stuff. And what I've really found has lost my train of thought because my son just walked back in here. He's looking at us like, yeah, I know. No, I'm not supposed to be here. But
if you want another tip.
that's funny. But when you can build those types of systems in place so that you can focus on the right thing, I got my train of thought back, right? We're always looking at prospecting in business. And, how do you feel like maybe an agent could shift their focus to think of, well, how can I, do all this social stuff to like, hey, my social stuff actually can become my prospecting time because the old ways of prospecting are no longer relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say if something's working, stick with it, right? If cold calling is working for you, if door knocking is working, or farming, that's awesome. But I will say that there's other ways, and digital farming and marketing yourself on social media is definitely a viable way of doing business. Some of the folks that we work inside of our academy, some of them are getting anywhere between 50 to 80% of their business from social media. And that doesn't mean that they're posting everything, every moment of their day. They're not posting what they had for breakfast and, every political thought that they had, but they are engaging in a really effective way. And so, again, I think getting into some sort of system, we really believe in this idea of batch creating your content. For example, if I'm going to sit down and record one video and do my hair and makeup, I might as well sit down and record 4 or 5. Right. And so we teach a lot of that. And I think when I look at the agents and brokers who are really successful when it comes to not only attracting new business, but staying in touch and building relationships with those past clients, those are 2 huge, big areas of opportunity with social media. And I'm sure we'll probably get into this in a second, but when you start to really invest a little bit of time, money, and energy into creating content, especially video content or podcast content like we're doing here, it takes a little bit of time, but the rewards are so beneficial if you're patient, right? If you can hold out those 3, 6, maybe even 12 months, but it's like a snowball, right? And what happens, and you probably experience this over the course of time, people will start to say things like, I see your videos everywhere. I feel like I know you. I feel like you're in my head. And those people, when they're ready to work with you, they're ready to work with you. They're not shopping around calling 12 different realtors. They know you. And now it's up to you to decide if you want to work with them.
Yeah, the relationship has been built. All the selling's been done. When people are coming to you after you've built a brand, it's because that, like you just said, they're coming to you. Like they've already decided. Now it's just about some of the last bits of, closing the deal, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And it's powerful. But there are so many that, don't have the patience that you described, right? Building a brand takes 3, 6, 9 months, and especially the slower that some seem to go. How do you feel like, we've walked into this Facebook ad paradigm, right? Where everybody, it seems, is trying to figure out Facebook ads. And what I've discovered is that when you go start paying for attention, it sometimes encourages you because Facebook made it so easy for realtors to succeed for a long time. It becomes so easy to drop the brand building activities and just pick up the lead generation activities, right? Where you go from somebody that's now attracting prospects like you described and somebody that's chasing them, but you feel like the business is happening faster. So what do you teach people about that whole immediate gratification type concept? Do you teach them to maybe combine those two forms of marketing and advertising, or do you teach them to, hey, don't be tempted, right? Resist the temptation. Like how do you guide people through that little scenario when we're talking about paid ads versus, organic traffic?
Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with having a mix of both. I think back to sort of my early days in real estate, which was like 10 or 15 years ago. And, that was way in the early days of social media. Most people were not spending money or time on social media. And, when you think of sort of traditional marketing, a lot of agents were doing a combination of like newspaper ads for their listings and then maybe glossy magazine branding ads, for themselves. And I think that approach still really works, especially in, maybe not necessarily traditional media. Again, if that works, that's great. But, when it comes to social media, I think it's important to have both. So one of the things we teach is, as you become more successful and you have more listings, that marketing is not going to change. You're going to have your checklist of everything you do when you're pre-marketing a listing, when you've got the listing on the market, just listed, just sold. You're going to do all those things on social media. You're probably going to run some Facebook ads to make your clients happy, just like you might have run some newspaper ads back in the day to make your clients happy. That part's not going to change. But to keep the wheel running, it's really important that you also have that brand building content, like you said. And so we recommend putting out a new piece of original content, if possible, once a week. And so that once a week content, that could be a video, that could be a blog post, that could be a podcast. Video, as you know, is really one of the most effective forms because people can hear you and see you. And that one piece of content, that pillar content, the good news about that is that you can slice and dice that a number of different ways. That one video could get reshared a couple different times over the course of a week. It could get turned into a blog post. You could share it on Facebook, but also, do an Instagram story about it. And you could slice and dice it and repurpose it in a number of different ways. But having those balance of both is really key. That brand building content, that's the content that's sort of evergreen or timeless. And what we see are most effective are the agents and brokers who are creating content around questions that get asked all the time. So it might be things like how to get my home ready for the market, should I move up? Is now a good time to buy? How do I declutter? Why should I pay for a stager? How should I find a realtor? All these things that people get asked all the time. Most of those questions are pretty timeless. So they're not only relevant today, they're relevant 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now. So you can reshare a lot of that content if it's timeless. But and I'll just say one thing, that the magic in that isn't just the content, because anybody can find a video about how to find a realtor, but nobody's going to say it the way you're going to say it. Nobody's going to have your experience and your expertise and your opinion. That's that layer of authenticity that makes a really, really big difference.
Yeah, that's huge. We try to teach people a lot about psychology. And when you look at video today, video combines all of the greatest forms of communication that we've ever had. And it does it in a way that we've been, really subconsciously wired since we were little kids to build relationships, create celebrity figures in our minds, those different types of things. There's a lot of good psychology studies around the video topic and why it works so well. And we call it the content compound, like you described, right? When you record that video and you take that, you chop it up a number of different ways. not everybody has a content team and those types of things, right? So one video can't turn into obviously 50 tweets and a bunch of Instagram quotables and all those types of things. I mean, it can, right? But
sure.
There's a lot of really cool stuff happens when you just build in that rhythm and that consistency. We had a loan officer that we worked with over a year ago decided, you know what, I'm going to go start a Mortgage Monday show. Mm-hmm. And now he's into the 60s in his episodes. He's just done one show every single week where he jumps on Facebook Live and talks about a random topic. He's interviewed people, so on and so forth. And it's really become a staple in his business. He's built a pretty big brand with it. And he's developed this platform. And I think that that's something that's so cool and so undervalued to most agents in the marketplace is when you have a platform, like when you have an audience, there is so much power in creating connections and creating relationships and doing those types of things that can really kind of help propel you and take you to a different level. And so we could really easily use this podcast as an example, right? Before I had a podcast, there probably were absolutely reasons for you and I to chat. It's just we probably wouldn't have made the time together. Maybe we would have. That'd be awesome, right?
Right,
to have that conversation. But now that we have a platform, I could reach out and say, hey, Katie, I'd love to have you on the podcast. My listeners need to hear you, so on and so forth. And we're able to begin, a great relationship in some capacity, whether small or large. And I think, agents could look at in your local community, if you had a podcast or if you had a little video show or something like that, what you've done is you've built a platform, and every business leader in the market, every charity leader in the market, every political figure in the market, like all of those people need more attention. And if you can help them get that, it's really huge for your business. So what do you guys have to teach on topics like that when it comes to, kind of building up a little bit of a platform and creating those types of relationships locally?
Yeah, it's huge. And I think a lot of people think that, that's not a new idea. That's already been done. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's not doing it, and if you look around your local market, if you're an agent listening to this, look around your local market. You could probably name a few agents who are doing video or podcasts, but very few are probably doing them consistently, like you talked about. And probably a very, very small amount are putting on some sort of show, as you mentioned, whether it's Monday Market Update or Tip Tuesday or, Feature Friday, whatever that might be. And it comes back to, I think, having a system in place. And so one of the things that we teach is either this idea, like I mentioned earlier, of batch creating your content. If you're going to sit down and record video or podcast content, you're going to record one, you might as well record 3, 4, 5, get it all done in one setting. If you're going to do Facebook Live, that's great also, because Facebook Live is a great medium. You can't really batch create your Facebook Live, of course. But in either way, one of the things we teach is time blocking, which I know is such a simple tip, but it's a small thing that makes a really big difference. So I'd recommend for any agent or broker who wants to do this, look at your schedule, look at it, the next 3 to 6 months, and block off time at least once a month where you're going to create that content. For me, I usually do it once a month. I'll sit down, I'll block off usually about 3 hours where I'm, thinking about what I'm going to talk about. I'm recording the content, I'm getting ready, doing the hair and makeup, whatever has to get done. But you block off that time. And I've just found that if it's not on my schedule, it's not going to happen. Everything else will always become a priority, right? I got to pick up my kids. I got to do this. I got to call this person back, right? It's never at the top of your list. So setting that time into your schedule where you're going to create that content, and then setting a schedule for when that's actually going to go out, whether it is, Monday Market Update or Tip Tuesday or whatever it is, but getting that into your calendar. Because what happens is, when you've got that consistency, people will find you at all different points. They'll hop on, they'll see you randomly on episode 32. They'll see you in episode 61, and they're like, oh, he's on episode 61. I like this guy. I want to watch the rest of his episodes. And so we teach this idea of creating episodic content. It's like your favorite TV show. You watch TV one night and you're like, oh, I'm on season 2. Well, I got to catch up, right? I need to binge watch that and catch up. So that's, I think, a small thing that makes a big difference. And that's how you get that snowball effect versus just a video here, Facebook Live. You start to create a show out of it. And like you said, when you become kind of that digital, that digital mayor, as Gary Vaynerchuk likes to say, where people know that you've got this show and they want that attention. So yeah, I think time blocking is a really big key. And also I would recommend just brainstorming, like I said earlier, what are the questions you get asked all the time? what are the businesses that you want to have those connections with, that you want to possibly feature, whether it's your local coffee shop, your local, superintendent at your local school, whatever it might be. Those are all fantastic opportunities to reach out, connect, build those relationships, and get them featured. It's a win-win. You're creating great content, and there's so many benefits long-term.
Yeah, I love it. And I'd like to add, you said something about, well, yeah, that maybe that's been done before. There's a few people that already have a show or a podcast. And if you look in your marketplace, like I live in a nice little area, there's about 2,000 licensed real estate agents. Let's say there are 4 or 5 agents that are doing video and they're doing podcasts. What that tells me is that literally like 1% to 2% of my market competition is doing podcasts and videos and stuff like that, which means that 96 to 98% of the market is still doing the cold calling, the door knocking, the junk mail. So which part of the market segment do you want to be in, right? Do you want to be in the most saturated form of traditional marketing that exists? Or do you want to be a part of the 1% to 4% that are doing things drastically differently? And when you look at one of the first rules in marketing is creating a niche and figuring out who exactly you want to do business with. You guys can go out and create these own segments of your market that exist that nobody else has a hand in. And you can interview local businesses that are relevant to your client, and you can interview political figures that are relevant to your client, and charities and all those types of things. If you understand who your customer is, you know exactly what type of content to go out and create for them. Facebook will even tell you if you use the Audience Insights tool. If you go plug in your ideal profile, they'll tell you what Facebook pages they like, what businesses they pay attention to locally, what news stations they watch. They'll tell you all of these things. You don't even have to go out and guess. Like you're like, all right, well now I know exactly which 10 businesses I'm going to go interview, over the next few weeks. So you're just full of great advice. I love it. I really appreciate when people jump on and share. So last thing I want to ask just before, and I know we both got to run, but when you're talking to people about, creating content and building a brand, so many people can get so overwhelmed, like, okay, well, I got to do Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and YouTube and LinkedIn and this and that and this and that and this and that. What advice would you give somebody that's kind of just starting out? Do they pick a platform and stick with it, pick a medium and stick with it, or do they try to, do it all at once?
Yeah. Well, if someone's just starting out, there's probably a couple things I'd recommend. I would say the first is just pick one platform. Pick the one that you enjoy being on, that you feel that the majority of your clients or prospects are probably on. And if you're not sure, you can always ask. Send an email saying, hey, I'm working on my social media strategy. Where are you hanging out online? Is it Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or none of the above? And that's fine. But pick a platform. You don't have to be all things to all people. You don't have to be everywhere. That's the first thing. But the other thing I would also say is that you might want to also switch kind of how you think about social media. I think that a lot of people think of social media as a place where all their content lives, and that's where all the business is going to happen. I look at social media more as a way to build relationships, right? Where you're connecting, wishing people happy birthday, really kind of authentically trying to connect, the Focus 5 idea, like we talked about in the beginning. And I also look at it as a distribution platform. So when you start to get into this rhythm of creating a weekly show, a weekly podcast or blog or video, you own that content, right? Which is really, really powerful, because I love Facebook, but who knows how long Facebook will be around for, or Snapchat or Instagram or all these platforms. So I really recommend that you really think about owning your own content, and then look at those different platforms as places to distribute your content. Right. So if I've got that one video, I may not have you may not have a content team that's going to slice and dice that 50 different ways, but I could at least say, okay, I'm going to share that on my business page, maybe on my personal profile also. I might share it in a group that I'm a part of also. And I might send an email to my database with a link to that video. Right. So that's a couple things I'd recommend. Start small, start with where you're at, pick one platform, but then I'd also think, again, bigger about what's really the value of social media. It's building those relationships, and it's a fantastic distribution platform. So those would be my tips.
Great stuff. I love it. Okay. So thank you so much for stopping by today and sharing some just absolutely golden information. I always, with all of these podcast interviews, I always take a page full of notes, and I always say that in all my interviews. I think people might think I'm joking, but I do. I have a page of notes from our conversation. So I hope that if you guys are listening to this, you have a page of notes as well. I know I learned a few things, and I hope that you guys did too. Katie, if somebody was listening to this, like, man, I want to connect more with Katie. It sounds like she knows what she's doing. What would be the greatest way for them to do that?
Best way to connect is through my website. So it's just katielance.com. KatieLance.com, KatieLance.com. And we've got a free, awesome email newsletter we send out each and every week with lots of tips and tools and resources. So whether you're just getting started or maybe you've been in this business a long time and you want to take your social media to the next level, go to KatieLance.com, sign up for our email newsletter. And that's one of the best ways to connect with me.
Love it, love it, love it. We'll make sure that we link that in the show notes, guys. Hopefully you appreciate what you learned here today. Make sure if you love the podcast, you rate us on iTunes, Google Play. Keep listening on the website. We appreciate you guys doing that. We hope that you have an incredible day. Katie, thanks again. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. I'm looking forward to seeing your next adventure on social media. It seems like you guys are out there doing your thing as a family. I love it. And if there's anything that we could ever do for you, we'd love the opportunity. Guys, thank you for listening to the Marketing Genius podcast. We will see you on the next episode. Peace.
Thanks.